So little intro's going. So you got a pretty heavy storm there in Utah, or?
No, we don't. We just have it in New York and around. So that's why I got stuck.
All right, in 5, 4. All right, welcome back to the Leo Perez Show. Today we have Angelo Colina, Venezuelan comedian, currently living in New York, new media entrepreneur and commentator, on both whatever is happening in Venezuela, Latin America, and the perspective of a Latino migrant in the USA. You can check out his work on his YouTube channels, Just Got Here, Machos Club, and his own personal YouTube channel, Angelo Colina. So, man, welcome to the Leo Perez Show. I'm really happy to have you here. How are you?
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's fun because before you were just saying, but you were speaking in English, and then you said Angelo Colina, and I was like, okay, cool. And then in Spanish, people normally say Angelo, but it's actually Angelo. It's Angelo in Spanish.
I got some Italian
roots.
Fun.
Yeah, but it's fun the way you said it because you just said Angelo Colina, but never mind. Yeah,
Man,
I always talk about that.
If I can make the comedian laugh a little bit, that's maybe some extra points for my day or something like that, right?
Yeah, I make fun of myself all the time because I get them mixed up in even at my graduation before grabbing the actual degree. Yeah, I was called by Angelo Colina in front of like 5,000 people, which sucked.
What's your degree?
But yeah, thank you for having me.
What's your degree, by the way? What's your degree?
I studied mass communication, audiovisual arts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I do filmmaking, which is what I do in New York.
Yeah,
but then I mixed it with comedy, so I do both of them.
What was first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, like the filmmaking or the comedy or both? Like,
I think it was the filmmaking for sure. A lot of people think most of the time they talk to me about old stuff in comedy or old comedians or anything else, thinking that this is what I've always wanted to do, but that's not true. I realized I wanted to do this when I was like maybe 21, 22, because I was doing filmmaking. And then I've always enjoyed comedy, but I was doing filmmaking, and then I had a class in the university where I had to write a script, and I wrote a drama script, and it sucked. And the professor told me that in front of everybody in the room. She told me, "Hey, this sucks, but I'm sure you can do something good in comedy because you're very fun and you're funny." She was like the first person that maybe said that to me. So I wrote a comedy short film that it was titled 2030, so 2030. And it was about Venezuela in 2030, how I expected it to be. That was in 2014, 15, I believe.
Where is this?
And then,
where is this, in Venezuela, or you were in Venezuela, or?
Yeah, that was in Venezuela. That was in Venezuela. And but it's way off now. Like, it's not even funny anymore.
Yeah.
Because it went over the actual jokes. Like, I wrote jokes. There's a shot. There's a scene where the guy's he's calling a taxi. And he jumps in on one of these guys with the donkeys, that are like going through the streets in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And that actually became a thing afterwards. And a lot of things became a thing afterwards. So the short film is not funny anymore. But back then it was. We went kind of viral. Got like 15K back then, like in 2015, which was a lot.
Of course.
But yeah, that's how it started.
This introduces this really interesting idea, like, when reality becomes more extreme than the joke stops being funny, right?
Which happened here with Trump and everything else. There's the meeting of Trump, and I don't remember which one was the other president, which looks like an office, the office scene. The way it's shot with the handheld camera and stuff. Yeah. So it becomes reality now. Everything is so fucked up now.
But I had never thought about that until this moment, that really, like, the moment when the joke becomes harsher than the reality. Sorry, when the reality becomes harsher than the joke. It's like the joke is like in the border of where things should be. And when things cross that border, the joke stops being funny anymore, obviously. It's like, when you joke about somebody dying, and you're like, ha, 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 and then the person dies, and you're like, oh, boom, it kills the room, right? And we seem to have gone, like, I mean, all my predictions of what could have happened about Venezuela and what was going to happen about Venezuela were all so off, because I always, when I describe to people, like here in Russia, what's the story of Venezuela? I say, listen, the story of Venezuela is discovering that the basement had a basement. And ad infinitum, you know, it just never stopped. You know, we kept going down.
It's never
down
ending.
and down. So you studied there, right? In Maracaibo? Did you study in Maracaibo?
I did. Yeah.
All right. This is a mandatory conversation we need to have before we go to your studies. Maracaibo. That's, for Venezuelans, that means a lot.
It does.
How can we transmit...
For people from Maracaibo too.
How can we transmit to somebody what does that mean? I mean, sometimes when I'm telling to people here in Russia, like, the city number 2 here is St. Petersburg, you know, and wow, it's just like when I try to say something about Maracaibo that makes sense, I just can't. So as a Maracucho, how could you... Maracucho is disclaimer, is a person who is from Maracaibo. How could you articulate this madness?
It is so crazy to talk about like Maracaibo. I know it sounds like cliche, but it's real. Like it is weird to explain, because I don't feel like, just the first time I left the country, I was living in Bogota in Colombia, and I met a lot of Venezuelans from different places, and I realized we had nothing in common. We have so little in common. We do, honestly, like culture-wise or other stuff. Like people from Maracaibo didn't even back then need to go to Caracas to travel internationally. So that tells you a lot of how, you know, independent the city was. So people didn't really need to know anything else, which is not really good per se, but it didn't create independence to the country. So I don't know. It's weird. It's like Florida, but in Venezuela. So weird, but it's nice. I missed it. I love it. I think people there are great, but we are different. Yeah, we're completely different.
It's kind of like very fast thinking mentality, right? It's something that goes really fast.
I think it's also a matter of how weird it is for people to have different ways of being.
Yeah.
So for example, it sounds weird, but the way I treated my friends, and even the way I spoke to them, is way different to the way I spoke to somebody who I didn't even know. Or somebody who I just met, which is like very common. Well, you know, in Maracaibo we use vos instead of tú, which is, you know,
like
English for you.
Yeah, thy.
Right. So, but we do use tú in Maracaibo. We just use it with people who we don't know.
Yeah.
Or we are not, you know, that close to.
It's the opposite. It's like you use the informal word for the people you don't know, and the formal word for the people you know.
No. It's actually so the way it is that people who are really close to you, use vos. People who are not close to you, who you just met or anything, they talk about it as tú. And then there's usted, which is like it's for older people.
Exactly.
But that's not relatable to the rest of Venezuela. And then the other thing is that for people who think that know you, they would speak to you as vos, but they don't know you. So that's the weird thing about it.
Wow. So there's like,
it's just a matter of perception.
I see.
It's a matter of perception.
The other force that I as a Caracanian as I am, the other force I thought that was a part of Maracaibo's kind of cultural heritage. I'm gonna take the mic for a sec just to give a bit of context for those who don't know. Like, okay, Venezuela, kind of like if you would make it across, you know, Maracaibo is a bit on the north and the east, right? Like sort of like nearby a really large lake, and it's a really hot area. It's city number 2 of Venezuela. It's correct? Do you think to say that? Like it's city number after Caracas, it's like city number 2 of Venezuela. And to give a bit of a wider context, it's like all of us are, which are not from Maracaibo, are shocked about how folkloric it is, and that's a hard way to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's difficult to understand perhaps, but it would be something like Nashville for Americans combined with Florida.
Probably like Texas.
I think Texas. Yeah, something like Texas.
People from Texas are very proud of being from Texas.
Exactly. And people from Maracaibo are really intense about where they are from. And when you don't go there, you have no idea what's going on. And when you get there, you realize that it's a total great madness. It's really interesting. And also Maracuchan ladies are really interesting too. Like it's a whole dimension inside Venezuela. So that's why for those of you who are not Venezuelan and don't know where are we coming from, you know, that's important to make this example. Now, what I wanted to say next is that I have the impression that Venezuela, Maracaibo has a really intense indigenous heritage. Is this correct? Like there is a lot of...
We do.
Yeah, like indigenous people there. Yeah. This brings me to an interesting question that was not in my list. What are the perception of Maracuchos of Caraqueñans? Like how do you see us?
I think that's the same for anybody else around the country. So, and that's not only in Venezuela. That's also because, as I just told you, I lived in Colombia for a bit, for 2 years. And it's the same when it comes to like people from Medellin, what they think about people from Bogota.
Right.
So everybody thinks that about, and it's the same in Argentina too.
Right. So
if you speak to any Argentinian, people who are not from Buenos Aires speak shit about people from Buenos Aires.
Right.
So it's the same. I think it's the same as anywhere else. Like, we do think you are a little bit full of yourselves.
Right.
Well, I would say people think that. I don't necessarily think that because I don't care anymore because I'm 26 already. But people, when you're growing up, you think that. You for sure think that. Also because I think people, like wealthy people in Maracaibo, speak like people from Caracas.
In their accent? They remove the Maracuchan accent or? Wow.
I would say they try to do it. Like it's very common. I would say that's my experience. Maybe somebody's going to say no to me, but I would say that people, and that's also because they don't use the boss thing, which is also, anyway, the thing is like they don't use it. So maybe it reminds people from Maracaibo, of like wealthy people.
Interestingly enough, like, bringing the whole topic for a moment to Russia, it's like what you said about the capital here and how people perceive us. Because, it's really weird. Like, I already feel like a Moscowite. I never imagined I was ever going to say that in my life. It never crossed my mind. But Russia is such a strange beast because it's super homogeneous. It's very strange. It's super homogeneous. It's super homogeneous. Like you can travel. The distance between here and Volgograd, for example, it's kind of like traveling from Berlin to London, something like that. Or maybe traveling from New York to Austin, something like that. And you will find very similar things along the way. It's very like flattened, by the previous regime. So Moscow is kind of like perceived, I don't know. I think it is perceived like, obviously, like the capital, but I don't perceive this kind of like, divisions in Russia. It's very particular. Right. It's less regionalized.
Right. I would say it's also a matter of, it's a political thing too, for sure. Like the way living in the capital has some advantages, especially right now from what's going on there. And the way that, people don't get as many, like electrical cuts, whatever you call them, like power cuts, as people from around, the country. So I think that's also a thing that pisses people off.
That's crazy. Like if that's your bar, that's so crazy. If that's your bar, how low has your country gone? Basically what we're saying is like the bar is that it angers
You're blaming it on people, not the government, which is insane. But
the bar, for those who cannot piece this together, the bar is something like Maracuchos are angry because Caraqueñans get less power cuts. It's not like they don't get power cuts. It's like I get 7 and you get 5. Fuck you, man. Like that's crazy.
Yep.
So all right, you were in Maracaibo most of your life, and then you migrated to Colombia? Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I went to Colombia first when I was 19. I think. For 6 months. I was an English teacher. I had always been an English teacher. I was one for 7 years. So I was there for 6 months. Then I went back, finished my university studies, and then I went back to Bogota again. And I was there for 2 years. And then I came here to Utah, where I am right now. Even though I lived in New York, I'm stuck here right now. But yeah, I lived here in Utah for almost 2 years. And that was very, very traumatic. And now I live in New York.
I hit the pause button because I don't want to wake up my baby. Just let me close the door. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just in case. I just realized that. So you lived in Utah for 2 years, and it was a quite traumatic experience. Why is that?
It's a very conservative place. Mm-hmm. That's the easiest way to put it. I've met people who live here and really like it here because it's quiet, it's very cheap to pay for housing. Yeah, it's quiet. There's not much going on, but it's very conservative. And also, so the Mormon church is here. I don't know if you
Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
about
Sure.
that.
Sure.
So it's hard because I think, according to the website, I think 2,600,000 people. There's 3,200,000 people in Utah,
Yep.
and out of that, 2,600,000 are Mormon,
Wow.
and they're very, very conservative.
So
They're
what is the
very,
effect? What is the effect of this in your life? You can silence a room very easily by saying something inappropriate, or you just don't
yeah.
connect
Oh,
with
yeah,
people.
for sure, for sure. And also, it's a matter of it's the way you're seen. If you're drinking beer or anything, and somebody who's a Mormon comes into your house and sees you, there's a lot of stuff going on. Look, actually, beer here was like below five. I think no, below 3.8% of alcohol. That was a volume until like 2019,
Wow.
because the Mormon Church wouldn't let it go beyond that. So it's weird. It's weird how, and that's why people who are not religious here are so crazy. They're so they're so different, from that, because they want to be the exact opposite of it. There's not really in between. So I really didn't enjoy being here at all. But now I lived in New York, so
The algorithm
I'm
was
happy
like
now.
your mom left before you, or did you went together? Your family left, or something like that, or did you migrate on
We
your own?
kind
Or?
of we kind of came together, yeah. She went first to Colombia, and then we met here. So yeah, but we were lucky enough to leave the country,
Yeah.
and now she's here, and I'm in New York, so it's easy for me, to come see her.
And so, okay, Maracucho studies in university there, kind of like filmmaking or media production, something like, or mass communication.
It's
right?
actually it's mass communication, and then there's publicity. I think the other one's like, I'm not sure what the third one was, but then it was publicity and audiovisual arts, and I went towards audiovisual arts.
No, really interesting, because sometimes we don't know how we are perceived as people by others, and when I said that you're a comedian, I heard you laughing, and it interests me to ask you that. Do you feel yourself, I mean, do you understand that you are perceived like that? For example, I'm a rando
Yeah.
who saw you online, and then just like, oh, that's a comedian. Like, and of course, I don't know your full picture. That's why I make this conversation with
Oh,
you.
no. And I come across that, I would say always now. Before I didn't, but now it's very common. It's weird because at first, or maybe right now, even if I'm not doing anything lately, because I haven't done stand up in a while,
Yeah.
because
Well,
of
yeah,
COVID.
because of the
So because of
COVID.
COVID, and also and also because I stopped. So because I was doing stand up here in Utah.
Yeah.
And then I stopped for a bit because I was focusing on other stuff, and I was coming back, and then COVID hit, and so I haven't been doing much besides the podcast and the sketches, because it's my only way out. But if people see me hanging out with other comedians or just talking to them over Twitter or whatever, so then they see, oh, he's a comedian, even though they haven't seen anything I've done. But yeah, I want to be a comedian. I say that I'm not gonna be one until I really make money out of it. Not a lot of money, but like live out of it.
Sure.
But yeah, lately it's been like I have to face it. I'm just a comedian who has no money. So I just do that. But yeah, I just haven't been doing stand up, and I just do sketches mostly because that's what I want to do.
I wanna like, I mean, as a side note here, I mean, if I can say something that encourages you to move on and to carry on and to keep pushing, because I mean, I know you will anyways, whether regardless if I say it or not, but I have this thought, which is like, when you enter into any artistic endeavor, because all artistic endeavors have the same level of difficulty. When you work for Microsoft, for example, Microsoft makes a contract between you, the employee, and society. The company negotiates the contract for you. And it's its mass power who has the ability to craft a contract that puts money on your table. But when you're an artist or any kind of artistic shape or form, you find yourself in a situation when you're telling to the world, hey, world, why don't you craft me a special contract just for me? You, all the world, for me. And I mean, there is a, I think that there is like a threshold, that after one crosses that the contract is finally crafted. And before that, it's just we are meant to suffer for our decision of wanting to craft that contract. And you know what? It's not unfair. It's actually not unfair. If you think about it from the perspective of what I'm saying, it isn't unfair. And many people who are in artistic world, I guess that these are the ones that don't make it.
Complain about that.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, it's like, what do you want? I mean, what do you want? Why don't we set up Madison Square Garden for you right now? Let's do it. Is that what you want? Okay, what do you want? Jennifer Lopez to be your your support act?
I think it's a matter of, and I'm okay with it mostly because I'm only 26.
Yeah.
So I still have time to fuck it up.
Yeah, that's cool.
I still have some room to say, fuck, what else am I going to do? Which is not going to be my case because I just want to push for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not complaining at all. I still,
Absolutely
find my way around.
Like
I do filmmaking, which is also what I enjoy. And that's a way, I have gigs and stuff. And that's a way and I don't get that far away from what I want to do. Because a lot of the times if I'm working right now on a independent docuseries in New York about immigrants.
Yeah.
And I'm the camera guy. And then these guys have seen my stuff now and they love what I do. And this is, it's also a way to bring people over what I do. But yeah, I'm not desperate. I'm like, I think I'm chilling. I enjoy what I do. I think it's very cool to run into people who like what I do and I find them cool as well. You know what I mean? Because I could also do this sucks. What I'm about to say sucks. But I think, like, especially for Venezuelans, there is an easy way. There's a shortcut to make money
in comedy.
Yeah. Oh, for
super
sure.
interested in hearing this.
Yeah, it's because people can take the bait for anything you do. If you make any either political jokes or anything related to the culture there. And this is why good comedians there are the ones that are respected.
In Venezuela. Good comedians in Venezuela?
Yeah, because they go against stuff. And then they're going to be called whatever they're called. But they'd rather being, very either progressive or not doing the same jokes as, that reinforce these stereotypes that we were talking about earlier. So you could make a living out of it. But by just, having people to take the bait on these topics, you could do it. You could take that that shortcut. But
is it
you just don't want to do that.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I wanna try to for a musician. For me as a musician, it's really easier to understand the mainstream of music, but it's harder for me to understand the mainstream of comedy because I am honestly really far away from this topic.
Right.
Is it like, I mean, perhaps could it be formulated like this? The comedian, and we are hitting now the goal of my podcast with you. The comedian's role is to push the boundaries the mainstream comedians doesn't.
I would say so.
Like that?
Or maybe not.
Like that? Mm-hmm.
Maybe not mainstream. Because there are mainstream comedians that are really good too.
Yeah, like Dave Chappelle or something. Like it's pushing the boundaries. Like
yeah.
Exactly.
There's a limit where those ones go separate ways. I would say more like traditional comedians there. That's the word. So a traditional comedian right now, sadly, I would say, in Venezuela. And we don't know about those because we don't come across those because we don't, we kind of make our timeline on either Twitter or Instagram the way we want it.
Exactly. It's our own echo chamber. Yeah.
Right. But in my way, I come across those and I see what the hell is happening here. And there's people who are really making it and they have a huge platform and they talk about stuff that are not helping at all. Because comedy... and this is also a thing, like I'm nobody to say that, but in my opinion, I think comedy does a lot to the way people think. Like people do listen to comedians. And if not, you could just see, and it shouldn't be like that all the time. Because for example, when the elections here, like election day, that was on Saturday. And then the first comedian you saw was Dave Chappelle because people wanted to see what he was going to say.
Yeah.
But even though that's not what he's supposed to be, because he was put in that position.
Sure.
And that's a lot of responsibility because the whole country is listening to you. And then, but he's he should be there just to make jokes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But at the same time, those jokes can have, I don't know, it's complicated. It
One of
shouldn't be,
the
but it is.
no, yeah, but one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is an idea that I find fascinating, and it was introduced to me by a guy called Jonathan Pageau. Jonathan Pageau is a really weird figure in the sense of the conversation we're having. He's an icon craver. He makes Russian Orthodox icons, but he is a Canadian guy, and he has a YouTube channel which explores the world from the perspective of a Orthodox. But it's really good, actually. It's really, really good. And he threw this idea at me that really shocked me, which is this idea. Think about it. You have the king, right, of the court in the past, and then there is the fool, right, the figure of the fool, which is super important figure. I mean, the buffoon of the court, right? Think about in our ancient times. So the idea is amazing, man. The buffoon is supposed to flip everything upside down to make everybody laugh. But when the world is upside down, the buffoon speaks the truth because he's flipping the upside down world into the right place. Beautiful idea. So maybe that's why Chappelle finds himself in that circumstance. Because, I mean, the world is so flipped.
Actually, I think it was the most streamed video, or one of the most streamed videos on YouTube last year. When he talked about what happened to George Floyd.
Yeah.
And why are you looking for a comedian? You know, I mean, it's tough here in the States.
Sure.
And that's also one of the reasons why I think I said I'm not ready to do this. Like in Venezuela, there are great comedians there whom I respect and I love some of them. But yeah, I feel like you gotta push for something else that sometimes I don't think I'm able to do it in Venezuela. They are, and some of them are great, and they do it in a very smooth way, but I don't feel ready yet to do it. So that's why I just started doing, like not that long ago, things. I still have my podcast in Spanish, but what I want to do from now on is mostly sketches in English and try to do something here.
It's just like there is a moment when you kind of break the boundaries of where you live and you migrate. I mean, let me give it a step back better. There are countries who were or are empires, like Russia, Germany, England, France, the USA, and there are countries who weren't. And the realities of those two kinds of countries are so different. Because these countries of this area of the history, the countries that were empires, the conversation they're having now is like, how the hell we put rockets on somewhere else, something like that. It's like that. I mean, if you squeeze the conversation into the juice, where you get is something like, how do we cure cancer? How do we send rockets to another planet? Make electric cars and things like that. And for us who come from the periphery, when we arrive to these places, we're still like kind of confused about which kind of conversation should we be having, us, like as people. Should we be having the conversation of our local environment who doesn't send rocket to space? Or are we a citizen of the world that can actually add on something to that conversation? And that's kind of the divorce that I have with Venezuela and with Spain, with many other countries, a little bit, because now I'm a bit of an arrogant Russian. It's like, you make jokes about this, I make rockets to space, like.
That was actually a nice take. And people, if like people who are seeing this, they're gonna be like, look at Angelo's face, because I was like, I'm very ignorant, and I really like listening to these type of stuff. But I think that's a nice take, because I do feel that sometimes, and I came across this idea not that long ago, and I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm so sure I'm wrong.
That's a good sign.
But that's the way I feel right now. And it's just that sometimes I just rather be an ignorant and not know about stuff. Because if I know, the more I know about what's going on in the world, the crazier I go.
Of course.
And like I get, I wouldn't say anxiety because I don't suffer from that, but I don't feel well. I feel overwhelmed sometimes, by what's going on. I take things personal. If I read a story about somebody in Venezuela who needs help or something like that, it really hits me, and it shouldn't. I'm just in that position. So lately it's been like, if I'm gonna do comedy, I'm just gonna try just to make people laugh, try to do something funny. But I don't want to go any further because I feel like I need more experience to really tell people these type of stuff. So it's a lot of knowing, and this is what I was talking about earlier. And I know I'm a mess right now, but I think a
That's
lot
great.
of these comedians, like on social media, like Venezuelan ones, they have a huge platform. Some of them are my age or younger, and they say these crazy stuff who are like very, very dangerous and hurtful to people, but they have no idea because they think they're doing comedy, even though they're not in a position where they would ever, be targeted or whatever. And it's just the way you do it, I think. And I look at them and I go like, I can't be that. I just can't.
Wow, you make me think a lot with what you just said, because I'm always like, I'm super, super pro free speech, obviously, and speaking your mind out and saying whatever you want. And I don't want comedians to have like the feeling that they cannot say something. But it's really interesting what you're saying. It's really interesting what you're saying, because there is such a fine line between saying something mean and saying something funny, right? And this has no implications, in my opinion, because I'm uber libertarian in this sense. It's like, listen, you want to say that all, name it, I don't even want to get in trouble, so you want to say that all of those, you name it, should do this thing that you name it that is horrible? I don't give a shit, do it, whatever. But you're just not being funny, and we're going to punish you for being unfunny. But I see the point now. I see a little bit that, where does it become aggression? Like, in which point it becomes aggression, right?
That's a thing. I think we are not, and that's why people talk a lot about empathy, because you're not in that position. I don't get, why would I get offended about anything? I'm just a guy. I'm not part of any minority. I don't go through any, of course, I'm an immigrant, of course, but besides that, I don't, it's just a man's world, man.
Sure.
We really don't go through, or we can avoid to go through a lot of stuff. So you just gotta be in a position where if you're making jokes about, say, a group of a minority, and no person is laughing at that, like nobody from the minority is laughing at that, but the people who are not there, then you're not making jokes. You're making fun out of them.
Exactly.
And that's
you're humiliating them. You're humiliating them.
Right. You're not welcoming them into the comedy that you're doing. So that it's very easy to know, because if you make a joke about gay people, right? Yeah. Which you could, because a lot of people say, and people go the other way around. I'm sure that happens to them. They go like, you can't make jokes about gay people. Of
Which sucks.
There are also people. Yeah, that's stupid. That would be stupid. But if it's not funny to gay people, which is very common, because normally people don't understand them, because they're just the joke, not part of it, then it's not fun. It's as simple as that. But then I would say that it is as simple as that.
Then it becomes important. The skill becomes extremely important, and this takes us to another interesting question I wanted to ask you. The skill becomes important, which is to read the room, right? Like, and I'm curious now, as a person who performs music live and can read the room as a musician perspective. Tell me a bit about, for us who don't do stand-up, like, what is that trip? Do you modify your jokes as you go because you see them, or do you have a program? That I cannot imagine how to even approach to this problem. Like, you stand up there and you say something, and then it happens to be hurtful. Do you feel like a black hole inside of you when you say something that you shouldn't have said? It's hard to question. It's not clear, but I hope you get what I mean.
So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be pretty straightforward before somebody else says that on a comment or something. But I've only done stand-up 5 times.
Okay.
So it's not a lot, right?
Great.
However, so one of the times that I would say the time that went really well here in Utah, I only made jokes about white people.
Uh-huh.
Because everybody's white here in Utah. And if they're in a comedy, because it's here in Utah.
Right.
So if they go to a comedy club, they're probably, a little bit more open-minded than people normally here in Utah. So I was able to make jokes about them and make jokes about myself, because that's what I understand the most.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people, how people say all the time, and we come across this a lot, people saying women are not funny.
Yeah.
And they talk about either a movie or a TV character that's not funny or whatever. And you got to understand that a lot of times those characters or jokes are not written by women.
Of course, you're right. That's a
written
good
by
point.
men.
That's a good point.
So when you watch a TV show that's actually written by women for them, you
Yeah.
see the difference.
Yeah.
Fleabag, for example, an Amazon Prime show,
Yeah.
that's one of the best comedy shows ever.
Portlandia.
It's one of the best comedy shows.
Portlandia is a great one.
It's Fred
Yeah.
Armisen and what's the name of this girl? Well, that's kind of
Also escapes
contradictory,
my mind, but
No,
I
no,
love
in the name.
I love her band so much. I mean, I
It's the same.
arrived to the show because of her band, actually. Yeah.
Or just 30 Rock
Yeah.
or Parks and Rec, and then you see the difference. And this is why there's that perception, because they understand themselves. So that's a difference. When what you're saying, like reading a room, you can talk about the stuff you understand. If you don't understand about something, and then you're just
Sure.
making jokes because you can't make jokes only because you know that people are gonna laugh at them.
Sure.
There's a little bit of responsibility too, I would say, because at the end of the day, it's you the one that's hurt.
Man,
So I don't know.
days,
That's only my opinion.
in these days, I did a podcast a couple of days ago. I did a podcast with two of great friends, like about the GameStop situation, and we were just talking about these boundaries in online between, I mean, being censored or being censored, saying the right thing, the wrong thing. There is a moment when there is a third vector that needs to be considered, which is like you have the right to not be offended or something like that, or the right to be in a space online in which you feel okay, but also you have the right of having you have the responsibility of having prior knowledge. Like,
Exactly.
yes, you have the responsibility.
That's a nice way to put
Yeah.
it. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah,
It's just like because it feels like you just don't care.
Right.
That's what the thing is. So a lot of these people do these jokes because they know they're gonna be, there's gonna be controversy and they're gonna go viral. And if they go viral, even if it's in a bad way,
Yeah.
they run into more people who think like them.
Sure.
So you know what I mean? So they become famous out of it's more like infamous in a way. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I think you can see the intentions behind a joke or a comedian.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Totally see them right nowadays.
And I guess that in a way you answered my question about stand-up, because you can tell which musician is trying to do something just to become famous and which musician is trying to do music. So, I mean, and this also ties up with the mainstream comedians. Like, it's pretty obvious that some people just really want to, because it's a fascinating jam. It's like, let's use language to push the boundaries of reality. Just words. Like, let's just use words. It's a really interesting game. And so I guess that the line between those comedians that are interesting and powerful goes beyond, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get famous? Or are you just trying to really use language to make something interesting? And luckily for us, it seems like the internet still can kind of perceive that, because I think that's what behind the success of somebody like Joe Rogan. I'm talking about his podcast, not his stand-up, because I don't know his stand-up. It's like somehow, even though things are so plastic and so Instagrammy nowadays, people still can perceive genuinity. How do you say that? Like genuinity? Yeah, I don't know. I forgot. So
Whether if they're genuine or not,
exactly,
I'd rather just say it.
whether they're genuine or not, and I guess that's a big difference between how also a stand-up comedian is perceived. Like I mean, when you stand up there, if you're truly genuine, things kind of flow on your favor. I have noticed it every time.
Yeah. And you can also fall into the other spectrum, which is something that I would say was going to happen to me, but I was able to have people around, or either comedians who I didn't even know back then, but I admired from Venezuela. A lot of them, used to give me advices, or just, hey, you may not want to do this because, you get likes or stuff, but you're going to fall into a place where you're just doing what I told you before, just giving people, like waiting for people to take the bait on stuff.
Yeah.
Because I can also go to the other side and then just be the one who's different to them. But you don't want to do that either, because you're forgetting about the main thing, which is just being funny. Because at the end of the day, you just gotta be funny. It's just that once you have a platform, you should be funny. I wouldn't say in a responsible way, but more like in a open-minded way where hey, and you can make that a thing. You can say it in the beginning. You can say, hey, these are just jokes, I'm just trying to make a joke. If I fucked it up, just let me know. If I fuck it up, just let me know. I'll change my mind. I'll see what I did wrong. But a lot of comedians just do something, see people angry, and they go like, I don't care, it was a joke. And maybe it might take a little bit from you to say, hey, maybe I did something wrong. Let me see what I did wrong. Let me talk to somebody here.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are willing to do that and that's the thing about free speech. Of course, we aren't pro free speech.
Yeah.
But there's when free speech becomes hate speech, and that's very common, then it's not your opinion anymore.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, oh, it's my opinion that you can't get married or have kids. That's not only your opinion. That's making, that
Right.
goes beyond only your opinion.
It's crossing into somebody else's lives. But like, I mean, my problem, because I'm really coming from in a way, from the libertarian point of view of like, my problem is to bring these things down to law. And for example, the extreme point of view is like, hey, let's talk about, for example, marriage and the capacity for people of different sexual orientations to get married. Should we allow that or not? Like, obviously we should. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't. What I'm trying to say is that maybe it's better if the government has nothing to do with that either, at all, with anything, of that. Like, just because we're there, you start finding problems down the line. Like, where do you define boundaries? And where you start finding these problems, maybe it's better to get away from that. Like I understand I'm getting into some dicey territory, but in my ideal world, the role of the government is so minimal, and I really don't mean to be utopian about this, that you don't need to even have these conversations. That doesn't mean that it's according to reality. Yeah.
It would be an ideal world.
It would be an ideal world. It will be an ideal world.
It isn't the case, and that's the thing. I think we gotta face the fact that it isn't an ideal. It's never gonna be that. As sad as it sounds, it's never gonna be that. So we gotta face reality, and then in reality, you find that these topics are hardly ever against something that's gonna go, that it's gonna affect you.
Yeah.
Like us in this particular case, that we are not. We're only immigrants, I assume. We're not part of any real minority. But then. That's what I think, because we're not affected by any of this, so we really don't care, and we say, "Oh, I wish everything was just nice."
Absolutely,
but it just isn't.
Now, that being said, I agree with you to a certain extent. I mean, not to a certain extent. I agree with you fully.
It's all right.
I agree with you fully. No, but I add a plug-in to your idea, like thinking on the video production and audio production world. I add a plug-in to the idea, which is like, you can also make yourself a victim and make everything worse, because there are many people who are in your position who exploit, like for example, I say your position in particular because I'm a Venezuelan in Russia, and that's an advantage for me without any question. Everywhere I go, it opens doors for me. Now, I'm sure that you may find yourself in some circumstances in the USA where it's like, my Venezuelanness is like hampering my progress. But what I'm getting from this conversation with you is like, you don't transform this into your life motif. It's like you understand,
right?
You understand that. Hey, listen. Like, for example, I remember when I was living in England, where it was like more uphill for a Venezuelan, in the sense that it's not exotic. It's kind of like there are so many immigrants and stuff. And I was always thinking like, these guys will hire an English person over me. Obviously, and it makes sense. They went to school together. Like, why I would hire the guy who went to school with me first? Like, it's not because I'm a bigot. I mean, there is bigotry. I'm not saying there isn't, but if you're an immigrant, you also have the role. We go back to this like responsibility of knowing. You also have the role to understand these kind of things. Like, the world is not going to just bend for you because you just moved to England and you want that job. Yeah.
I don't think the world has, and I've talked about it a couple of times. I don't think the world has to change for you. Of course, that's never going to happen. But we do got to try to make stuff change so they work for everybody.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Because maybe they're not, like I say, yeah, and people say, oh, but back then nobody complained. Because those people were not getting affected,
Exactly.
and those people's voices were silent. And I mean, there's so many.
How can you
It's so
complain?
easy. Yeah, it is hard for you to do it, and that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
That wasn't a lot of the stuff
of
that people
course.
are fighting for right now were not that long ago.
Like 20 years ago.
Did you just see?
Yeah,
Yeah, are you talking about? Didn't you just see that Martin Luther King's pictures were color pictures,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the government make them black and white, so
yeah.
people would think, by
It was further
perception, it
back
was
ago.
actually further. So that's what I think, man. I know it's very like I don't know what would be a very I don't know what would be the equivalent to pajugo,
Yeah,
right?
like
Because it
fucking
is.
idiot,
I find
fucking idiot.
myself, I'm a fucking idiot most of the time, and I know, and people are thinking about it right now. Uh, but I just think, it's kind of unfair.
When did you move to the USA? In which year did you arrive there? I'm curious about this.
2018,
All right, so
November 2018.
you arrived into Trump year number 2, and so have you seen a big transformation in the USA in the last years, or do
I
you
don't.
perceive it? Uh-huh.
I think it's maybe not people outside. I have seen people. Well, I was here in Utah, so it's really it's
Right.
there's no diversity here. Everybody's white. Most people are white. So it didn't like seeing somebody with a MAGA hat wouldn't trigger anything
Sure.
because everybody would think the same. So it really I didn't see anything honestly within like in these 2 years. But then I moved to New York and I was there on election day. And when CNN, because that was like 4 days after, I don't remember. I really don't like politics that much, not anymore. I know I have to know about them, but it's
It became
like I say,
super toxic.
it's a lot to take,
Yeah.
and it doesn't let you go forward, and it I don't know, but I was there when CNN said that Biden was elected president,
Yeah.
president elect or whatever, and people were just like going nuts. I could hear people outside just cheering and celebrating, but maybe that wasn't the. And Chappelle said that night. I'm sorry for bringing him too many times, but
That's great.
he said that night. He said something like, "I know you're happy, so am I, but remember, half of the country feels very angry right now, and feels disappointed, and feels the other way." And it's it's something you gotta and look, I didn't want him to win.
Sure.
And I thought about it and I was like, fuck, that's true. So
And that's the thing. I mean, if we, I mean, look, I'm gonna build an idea here from an unexpected point of view. Like maybe I think 14 years ago, I became a vegetarian, and I became a vegetarian because I went to a field in England and I saw a cow, and I was like, I love you. I mean, I thought about it. Like, I love this cow. Like, I really, not in the I want to fuck you kind of way, but in the I love my dog.
Everybody maybe that's a thing now. I don't know. You
like
said you're a libertarian. Go
exactly.
for it.
I was just like, man, I love this cow. Like, I love a dog. So I just don't want to eat it because I don't want to eat a dog. And then I became super annoying motherfucker who was like, you idiots who are eating meat, you're not like, fuck you, man. And then, I mean, after 10 years or something, I just refined my posture to the following. It's like, I call it the nice boss posture, the nice boss. It's like, listen, we're the bosses of the planet. You can eat whatever the fuck you want. It's fine. But have you had an annoying boss? Yeah, I have. Or whatever, people can answer you. That's like, have you had a bad boss that is a motherfucker? Yes, I have. Fuck, doesn't that sucks? Yeah, it sucks. So, I mean, nowadays I consider myself a vegetarian, not because you cannot eat meat. I think it's really okay to eat meat, and you can do it, and it's fine. But it's really nicer if you don't. Like, that's it. It's just nicer. Yeah, it's just nicer to the world.
And that's why, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
And that's precisely why we just did a podcast about this. If anybody who's listening to this
yes, please,
is a Spanish speaker, can see that one. We talked about what woke is, and I know it's like we're very late into that because it's 2021 already. That's like a 2019 conversation.
Yeah.
But we were kind of waiting to see what we wanted to say, because people think are woke.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think they're woke. Yet,
yeah,
I'm using an iPhone right now,
exactly,
and a Mac,
exactly,
which is made at a sweatshop.
Exactly.
You know, and then there's a thing with being vegan.
Yeah.
It's the same. If I learned anything more about it, I'm sure I would become one.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm completely sure that they would talk me into it, because I do think you're right. I honestly do. I just fucking love Popeyes too much.
I really absolutely did not want to go to that topic, because I'm building a bigger picture. The picture is like, why is it cool to be tolerant? Is it cool because you are like kind of projecting to the world a better image of yourself? Or is it because it's like the nice boys theory? I think it's a really powerful idea. It's like, man, why, you know what, it sucks, a bad boss. You know, you can be a boss in a situation and restrict people's liberties and do things like that. And that's important that we consider this. You can do it, but you're just being an asshole when you do that. And that's way much more powerful than trying to go down the road of is it correct or incorrect, because it's gonna fall apart really fast. Like when you are like, I don't know, like it's like you should not discriminate towards any religion. Okay, but what if you're a Sunni Muslim or a Shia Muslim and you are in Iraq and the Shias are throwing you bullets at you, and then what the hell are you gonna do? Well, that's a different circumstance. So it's not the same if you try to paint some sort of algorithmic picture. In which like you can determine, you know, what is correct and what is incorrect. I like more these gray zones, like I was telling you, like the word boring, for example. It's
there is. Yeah, you could be gray.
Like it's just like, dude, like just like be a nice boss. You know, you can deter, because sometimes, and that's what Russia understood very well. Sometimes you are going to have to be an asshole. Like, I mean, Nazis coming into Russia kind of thing. Like maybe you're gonna have to be an asshole to Nazis. Like. Maybe it's like but I mean, you see, if you try to build an algorithm which is like don't discriminate towards anybody, it falls apart easily. Like
it is so easy to screw up with that. Like it's because it's never gonna be, it's not, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. There are gray zones, like you just said, and I feel like the way of turning people around or just trying to make people to join where you stand, it's not going to be by diminishing them or just saying, you know, like, oh, you're not right, you're an asshole because you do this, you don't think about these people. You can't do that. You just got to try to, you know, let people know that they got to listen to other people, and that's a cool thing about this, you know. People get to listen to different stuff, and if they don't, it's because they don't want to. They're not looking for that. If they're only listening to conservative stuff, they're never gonna change their mind. And they're not looking for that.
What's interesting is like, look, full disclaimer here. Like, I mean, I have kind of made a ideological jump. I mean, from being a very extreme, clear leftist to some sort of like centrist, not so clear about what the hell, because also the left has become very authoritarian, and especially in the USA. I mean, it's a complicated picture. I mean, I think that the ideal place to be, and that's what makes a democracy healthy, like bringing this down to politics, it's just like it takes a lot of effort. It's like in some sort of center left, center right position in which, man, some elections vote in one way, some elections vote in another. It just depends on who the hell is the candidate. Just depends who the hell are the ideas. You know, obviously the Donald Trump case was so extreme that it kind of like makes it obvious for some, but I mean,
it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. It's just politics. Yeah, it shouldn't be like part of your everyday conversation. It should not. It shouldn't.
You know, but you know something? I recently heard a really interesting story, and here's the story. It's like there are these guys who in the LA, they spend $1 billion of money in advertisement. Sorry, better said, they created $1 billion of advertisement revenue, meaning that the value of that advertisement was something like $1 billion in terms of the exposure that it had and all of that. And they wanted to reform the way the Democratic Party is seen. But when they approached to the Democratic Party to push this idea, they couldn't get it to happen. Like the Democratic Party did not want it, this kind of open-mindedness conversation, because they were talking with Trump voters and things like that, blah, blah, blah. But when I was hearing to these guys, I heard this very cool idea. Again, they were pushing the message of the Democratic Party to Trump voters. Really brilliant idea. That's what you got to do. And they crafted their message in a way that was not like saying Trump voters equals Nazis. It was just like, hey, look, check this out. Like there's another way. You know, we respect you. We know that you want to live. It's okay. Now, in those statistics that they were presenting, they said a really fascinating idea, because we really live in a bubble. The idea was the average American can only think about politics for 5 minutes a week. Can only, because it has to work 2 jobs, it has to work really hard to bring money for their family, but the media, Twitter sphere, you know, creates you this impression that everybody's just talking about politics every second of the day. Because those guys who are working in politics are the ones who are actually, you know, getting paid for doing that. So, of course, they're interested in creating that impression. But anyways, I'm going to take the road and like the wheel and just like steer it back to some questions that I had. Because I'm interested in this topic, but I think we can explore other things. I see that.
Oh no, that's okay.
I see that some of the things that, well, I mean, and we're gonna kind of stay nearby, but some of the things you were mentioning is kind of like, I mean, when I see your work, I see these things like millennials in the wild, for example, and I'm interested to hear like your perspective on generational differences. I mean, do you feel, are you a millennial, for example? I think the answer is yes. Would you say yes? Or you're a millennial?
I'm right there, because I'm 94, right? and I think it's until 94, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
Well,
maybe
obviously
96.
It's blurry, right? Obviously it's blurry, because I'm 85. I'm 85, and I'm so modern thinking that I consider myself a millennial in a way, like because of how I think and stuff.
But I think you are.
Yeah.
I think it goes from like 83
right.
or something. I'm not real sure, but the thing is like, I do see that every day more often. Like I find like even my closest friends, sometimes we talk about it and they give me some references that I just play along and go like, but I don't really. And there's also a thing like coming from Venezuela, I think you can tell the difference a little bit more, because people who are older than I would find themselves in a position where they miss Venezuela more than what I do.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like it sucks, but I don't really like, I miss a couple of stuff like, you know, culture and food and couple of, you know, family members.
Sure.
But really, I don't think, because I didn't live that many happy moments.
Yeah.
I didn't. I honestly didn't.
You live something pretty ugly.
I never felt my happiest there. I never did. Like I did it when I was out, like instantly, maybe like 2 months after I was, because, you know, and that's, and you can't blame me for that. And people try to do it. They go like, why are you so far away from me? Or why are you, and it's just like, I appreciate the way I was shaped, you know, like, especially for comedy. I think Venezuelans are funny in general. But other than that, I see, like, I have older friends and they always, you know, they have more anecdotes about what Venezuela was, or they had nice experiences, or they were able to buy their first car there or whatever. I just saw people leaving as I was growing older, you know, since I'm like 16 years old. And I know it sounds like I'm crying a lot, but I did see people I never went to one of my best friend's wedding.
Yeah.
That sucks. Like people should get to do something like that. I've never met any of my friends' kids, any of them. It sucks. I know it's a reality shock for people, but they don't think about it. But
they don't think about it.
I was always taking away, you know, either opportunities, and not only me, but my generation.
I once was in a bar, and it happens a lot here. I guess more than it would happen in America. I mean, well, maybe I'm wrong about it. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it happens a lot here that it's like, where are you from? Venezuela. Hugo Chavez, our comandante, you know, like he's like protecting the rights of everybody. And then we have a fight immediately. I mean, I just go into it right away, and I have this like standard answer, which is like, when was the last time you were in your friend's Ivan house? And they answered to me, last week. And I was like, I will never be in my friend's Ivan's house ever. And it's not because we're just, and the answer usually is like, that's because you have money and that's why you leave Venezuela. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I just don't know what you're talking about. Let's leave it like that. I mean, we lived something so extreme that nobody can blame to you, because look, let's say like you can have whatever position you have about the afterlife, in the sense that it's like, is there life after that, or yes or no, whatever. You don't have to suffer this one, man. You just don't have to suffer this one. It's not a mandatory thing, and because you were born, and because you were
That's
born,
what I don't care about it, you know.
Exactly.
And the longer you think about it, it's like you're raised thinking that if you do things in a way, you're not gonna go to heaven to live, you know, your afterlife.
Yeah.
And like, I don't care about afterlife. I want to live this one.
Might as well
you know,
live this one well.
I want to make my mistakes here, and I wasn't able to make my mistakes where I wanted to make them. That's the thing. It sucks, but it is true at the same time. And people, there are people having it worse. I know, but fuck that. That doesn't mean you can't feel sorry about what it could have been.
Sure.
And I'm happy I live in the city where I always wanted to live. But still, I feel like, coming back to your question, I do think there's a difference between generations, and I feel that even with jokes,
that's really interesting.
A lot of the times.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of like a weird. I mean, well, there is one moment there when you marry a foreigner, something really strange happened because you merge. You're. It's not the same as not marrying a foreigner. It's like you dissolve, and part of you become that. So I mean. I personally, maybe I had my shot of like my time of like missing Venezuela a lot, but interesting enough to tell you, like being a little bit older than you, which it's not a big difference, but maybe, I mean, when I left Venezuela, it was like the valuation was not 1,000,000%. I mean, there was like 1,000,000% of a difference, like, and that's a big difference. It was already shitty, like really, it was already fucked up. I mean, when I left, and there was very few. I mean, and everybody of my generation would agree that migrating was the right thing to do if you just didn't want it to ruin your life. And if you have the chance, I mean, obviously some people can't leave, and that's understandable, but...
And some others don't want to, and that's also
understandable.
I came across understanding that too late, I would say.
Yeah,
in the end, it's not bad, and people should eventually.
In the end, yeah, the less we're gonna tell people how they should live their lives, the better. Like, I mean, whatever. It's like, it makes you happy.
I think that's pretty much it.
That's pretty cool, man. Like, if it makes you happy, it's like, for example, weed smokers are like, why don't you smoke weed? Are you an asshole? Like, smoke weed. It's like, dude, like, let people don't smoke weed if they want to, or let people smoke weed if they want to. I mean, it's just weird.
Let people enjoy things or not enjoy them.
I have a particular question. Like, I have this fantasy that Venezuela is super, like, for example, I always tell my friends here, and I know that I live a fantasy, and you will be in some sort of like my reality check in some things. I have a fantasy that Venezuela was like a super non-PC place in the sense that, for example, if your friend was from China, you will call him Chino, and that was okay. If your friend was from Colombia, you will call him Colombia, and that was okay. If your friend was of color, you will call him black, like that. No, like, no problem. And I also was saying that Venezuelan culture is kind of like post-racism kind of thing. But hey, I'm so disconnected that I'm really curious to hear your feelings about Venezuela and racism. Like,
I think I changed my mind a lot 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I thought, and this has always been, but because this is my experience too.
Yeah.
And I'm not the right person. You know, this is also like this meme. It's from a TV show. Maybe it was Rick and Morty. I don't remember which one. Yeah. This is like, and today we're talking about feminism, and then we have these three white guys who discuss about it.
Right.
But it feels it feels a little bit like it. I was never. I was never part of any minority in Venezuela, so I didn't have that experience. So from my point of view, it was like, oh, there's no racism. There's no such thing as racism in Venezuela.
I see where you're going, and it makes sense. Yeah.
Because I can call my friend black. I always did that. I did think there's like there's a difference between, you know, like how do you call this? Like clasista. Like you do see
like classist. I think there's a word in English which is
but I do feel like it was more towards that. Like it was
right. If you have money, you are more like better seen. You can be like a person of color. We have money, and then you're automatically well seen.
Exactly, regardless of your race. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's what I thought. Yeah. That it's not, but it turns out I wasn't right, because there was eventually a conversation came across Twitter, and I follow a lot of people, like journalists, and I follow people who I really most of the time they don't think like me, and this is why I like to follow them to
Yeah,
see
of
what their
course.
insight is.
Of
And
course.
they were talking about how a lot of the times, if there was a cousin who wasn't maybe light skinned on a family, they would go like, oh yeah, he's beautiful, but he's not gonna be white.
Yeah.
And that is a thing. It was a thing, and then I realized I came across these all of these memories of people saying that all the time. Even when my brother was born, and he's not black, he's just not as light skinned as I am. Um, and I remember my some of my aunts and uncles saying like, "Oh yeah, but he's not gonna be white like you." Just like feeling disappointed at it,
I absolutely can
which
imagine
which
that
which is
conversation. Yeah.
which is weird. And I remember I had a girlfriend actually who was not white, and even my grandmother, and she's like the best person in the world. But
Sure.
they just say that without knowing that's a hurtful thing or whatever. She said something like, "Oh no, why don't you get a white girl and stuff?" So
Yeah.
there is something, and I don't know much more about it. Because like I say, I was never in a position where I could have noticed something. But from my perspective, yeah, you could have called a Chinese guy El Chino or whatever. It wasn't gonna
Sure.
make, no, I never saw anybody offended about it,
And I
but
don't think that if you have a daughter and it comes out with a person of radical different race than she is, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I just met you, and it feels very obvious to me that you will never pass a judgment based on that. Is that clear to you? Obviously, I mean, for me, it's so obvious. It's like person.
Yeah.
It's just like person. Like
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's just like
I don't.
person.
Yeah, I don't. I try not to pay attention to it, even if it's somebody who hasn't had opportunities because they're part of a minority. Still a matter of, are you talented or not? At least in my area, like that's what I'm gonna care about, regardless of whether if you're a woman or if you're a part of a minority or whatever. I just really care about whether if the person is talented or not.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Yes, I just trying to figure out how it works from the perspective of the Russian life, and I mean, everybody here seems to agree that Russia has like some sort of racist component. I have had only, it's very interesting what I'm going to tell you, is very fascinating. Like I have had only some sort of one encounter, and check it out how it resolved. Like I was in another city, somewhere in the middle of Russia. The cities here are quite big. I mean, when you think that Rome has like 2 million people, and Berlin has like 3 million people, something like that. Like the city where I was is a 3 million people city. So I mean, could have been Berlin or something. But anyway,
And in the middle of Russia.
yeah, because it's like Russia is half the population of the European Union, so it's quite
Right.
large. It's like 160 million. So I was in a city kind of like 2.5 million to be conservative, and I was talking with some friends in English, and then somebody on the way out hits me on the head, like tush, on purpose. And my friends were all like, "What the fuck?" Like they started out to go and punch this guy or whatever. And the guy tells me like, "Where are you from?" And I said Venezuela, and he was like, "Where is that?" And I said, "It's in America." And I was like, "In South America." And he was like, "You're not American," meaning like gringo, like you're not gringo.
Yeah.
And I was like, "No." "Oh, okay, no problem. You're my friend." Like I mean, that's a political bias, obviously. Like I mean, because of the division between the historical division that can exist between Russia and the USA, it can go to that far, of like, okay, he's an American, they are our historical adversary, something like that. And I know, for example, this is an interesting thing because I can tell you a lot about the gay scene here. Because man, many of the perceptions, obviously, yeah. No, wait a minute. Like many of the perceptions that people have, obviously, about Russia are super wrong. Like man, I mean, there are gay bars here. Like the gay community exists. You're not gonna hear from me some things that you will read necessarily on CNN or in the BBC, because obviously, just like that guy hit me on the head, and that guy had a beef to Americans, the same happens back there to us. So every time Russia can be guilty of something, it will be. And I'm not telling by any means that
that's true.
I'm not telling by any means that being gay here is the same like being gay in Berlin or in London. Obviously, there are more restrictions. But for example, I know a Canadian guy here who is a gay black man who migrated here. He lost his passport. And he felt so much at home here that he never made an effort to find it again, and he stayed here. And he never left. And he is a very prominent member of the music scene here. Everybody knows him. He has his fuck buddies, goes around everywhere. I mean, in the sense that he's very vocally gay, openly gay. And it's really not what you imagine. I mean, obviously,
right.
It's a little bit like being gay in Texas, something like that. It's like, I mean, being gay in Texas is not the same as being gay in New York or in Boston or something like that. The same is here. I mean, you were very, and I know I'm going to get a lot of haters for saying this because I really defend Russia because I have seen it with my own eyes. I mean, also,
I mean, you live there, so
yeah.
it really,
Sure. I also want to make a disclaimer that I mean, I don't know the whole picture, right? So I may miss some nuances that I don't understand.
That's your experience.
According to my experience, what I have seen, and I admit it's quite bubbly because I live inside the arts world and, where people are more open-minded.
More open-minded. That's
shows and
but you're aware of that.
Yeah.
And this is why conversations, and it sucks. We have to explain every single thing we say. But we have to.
Because I remember something once. Yeah, we have to. I remember something once when I had this very little thought that it's one of those thoughts that are little and super obvious. I was in a bus with some Australian friends in London, as a Venezuelan being in London, and then I was with some Australian friends which are not so culturally so different to us because they're Westerners, but they were coming from such a faraway place. And we were having fun that was compatible. I mean, we were having the same kind of fun. And I really remember this was early days of my migration, feeling like, wow, Australians and Venezuelans have fun in the same way. They're kind of the same. And then when you start going to the middle of Russia or somewhere, you realize that everybody is the same. I mean, they're just Homo sapiens who want to have a good time. And when you have kids, man, I'm now my son is 1 year and a half, 1 year, 7 months. And when you have kids, like, you realize that it's so crazy that the universe produces that creature who just want to have fun. It's like that's what a kid is. Like, you just want to have fun. It's not like trying to eat some snakes or something. It's just like, I want to play. I want to play right now. And we're all like that. It's just like, well, obviously, reality is complex and it's difficult to make a living. So things get stuck in a point. And also, I think we're
depending on when you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's. Yeah. I wish it was as easy as you put it. Or as we try to put it here in the conversation, but
I'm not by no means saying that it's easy.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah.
I know for sure.
I'm saying that when you travel a lot, you realize that compatibility. That's what I mean. That it's like, you will find that compatibility because I have been in Egypt, in Iran,
regardless of race or anything
or
else,
religion or creed.
You'll find that.
It's just like the problem is that I remember once I was with a friend of mine and a very very wise friend of mine, and I asked her, "What are you afraid of?" And her answer, I was expecting like snakes or spiders and she told me fear and laziness. And I was like, wow, perfect. Like, I mean, it takes, let's remove the fear part because the fear part can be irrational, but it really takes your personal effort to get informed about things if we're going to break this kind of prejudices. And that's maybe one of the things that lies behind all of this. It's like, well, both fear and laziness combined. I'm afraid of everybody who is different than me. But also I'm a little bit lazy to sit down and check it out, and just see how it really is.
I think that's what, that's a thing. I wouldn't, like you just asked me a while ago, like I would tell you my perspective of what happened in Venezuela. But back then I was very vocal of the fact that, there's no such thing as racism in Venezuela.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't say that now, but I also don't have, I can't also say because this happened because I didn't have any experience, but I just rather, it's okay to take a step back and saying, I'm just going to shut the fuck up.
I wouldn't have said that until this conversation. I mean, and that's the vulnerable place that I think we should be. That's why I open a podcast. I mean, it's a super selfish thing. It's like, I want to improve my worldview. So let's talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's there, and if you're not willing to ever change your mind or not change it, like that's also valid, I would say.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do think, I mean, I'm a little bit of a spiritual person in the sense that, I mean, I remember once my wife is an amazing mirror. She's an amazing mirror in which you can, stand in front of her and speak and get really, great image of yourself. And I remember when I was saying, like, I don't like that person because of it's wasting its potential. And then she kind of pushed me like, I mean, who are you to determine what person's potential is?
Right.
But I dare, and I still dare to go further because I'm really like, this is Sparta kind of guy in the sense that it's like, this is humanity. You know, it's like, it's not for free, man. Like, come on, like you're the biggest, most powerful creature in the solar system, you know, and it's like, there is something like wasting your life. Absolutely agree that it's a relative thing. Absolutely agree that I may most likely not be right, but I'm just expressing my opinion. Like, I get pissed off when I see that people make that decision of not pushing that boundary forwards. As long as, because I understand that there are things like depression that can pull you down, and okay, there are these physiological things, right?
Which you didn't understand 3 years ago, or maybe 4.
Exactly.
Because I never did.
Yeah.
And I also said, and that's what I say, man. Like, I know I could be a pain in the ass with being woke sometimes.
Yeah.
But I also hate the fact that people can't just say, hey, I did think that. I was like that once. That's why we can't pull somebody down from what they did 20 years ago. It was different standards, and people change.
Exactly.
People do change. I'm sure I was 100%. I still think everybody is a little bit homophobic, a little bit racist. Yeah. I still think that, honestly. I honestly do. And I think back then I was very homophobic. I was very racist. I was very misogynist. I think I was.
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
I still am.
I wasn't. No. My joke would be like as if I tried to defend the position
like you, like you were.
I'm not. You,
in my
only
case,
you.
No.
Only you. In my case, no. Like
you run into these people that say that all the time, and I'm like, you just can't.
You know, I mean, one of the underlying themes of this podcast is Carl Jung. I mean, I don't know how much you have flirted with that name and that person, you know, but Carl Jung was a psychologist who lived all the way until the 50s. You know, he died back then, and his work is quite extensive and quite massive. Absolutely changed my life, and I think that it would help to the world to understand that we are really a multiplicity of personalities. I describe it in the following way. It's like you, Angelo Colina, is driving a sledge of dogs. And those dogs are quite different from each other, you know, but yourself is that person, well, to be more accurate in Jungian theory, like your ego, your persona, the person that presents itself to the world is the driver of those dogs, you know. And they pull you here, they pull you there, they pull you here, they pull there, and you kind of like grab them and control them. Like, if we understand ourselves as a multiplicity, you know, one of those dogs is homophobic. But you have been very clever at controlling that dog. Or let's not call it homophobic, but one of those dogs is very aggressive to the opposite side of whatever you are. I mean, it could be religious or whatever. So, I mean...
Right, yeah.
Like, deny that we have that nature inside of us is a really big mistake. And that's one of the problems with the world. It's like, how dare you? It's like, dude, take a pill and chill. You have had that thought. Like, that same thought you're criticizing people. You've had it before. Yeah, and you have had all the ugly thoughts, and you have also thought about killing somebody, and that's something that really, I mean, and you have thought about...
You have.
Yeah, and it comes to your mind. It's a fantasy.
I still think about it right now. I'm planning something. Like,
it comes into your mind, and like, I mean, I don't know. I have had thoughts like, sometimes I'm walking on the streets. For example, the other day it happened to me. I was walking on the streets, and I saw a bridge in the Moscow city center. I mean, this is not about the murder side of me. Like, I saw the Moscow city center bridge, and I saw it collapsing in 10,000 years. It was like a vision. It just appeared in my mind. It was like, imagine that all humanity died and this bridge was there, and I just witnessed its last second in the history of humanity, in its history of that bridge. Like, and I saw it collapsing. Like, I didn't control that thought. It was a fantasy that appeared in my head. It was like 3 days ago. Or sometimes, like, I mean, maybe I have seen things like, I mean, I don't even want to name them because they're so painful. They're connected to my son, for example, of something happening to my son, you know, right. And they're really horrible things. And most of them are about my fault. It's like, I tell you one, and I hate to say it because I don't even want to say it, but my baby is not already using like a car, like a little baby cart. So for example, I have imagining that I'm walking with my wife across the street, and I all of a sudden accidentally let the little car where the baby go, and it goes to the street and the car runs over him, you know. And like, that absolutely doesn't make me a baby killer. Like, it's just like, these fantasies are inside of us, and anybody who will dare to say that they don't have thoughts like that, I think that full disclaimer here. Maybe I'm just understanding that I'm absolutely crazy when I'm telling you this, and you're gonna tell me, no, dude, I don't have those fantasies at all.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I think you're fucked up, man. I thought I was just about to stop you right there.
Do you mean it? Do you mean it? Do you mean it?
No,
of course.
I'm fucking with you.
Thanks.
No, I'm kidding. No, I completely agree with
it's
you.
Like the woke movement.
It's okay to be angry. It's like when my mom says, "Don't be angry." I'm like, "Fuck, are you crazy? I got to be
Obviously,
angry. I have to."
The point is to make a negotiation with the world and make sure that this anger doesn't transform into suffering for somebody else. And but the woke movement has made the killer mistake of kind of like assuming that everybody is a Puritan, perfect individual who is like whoever deviates from that should be isolated. And that is absolutely pathological. And worse than that, it's like, let's go back in time and annihilate whoever thought like that in the past. And it's like, okay, like how are we going to do that? Like how are we going to live now?
We can't. It is good to see back there and see of the mistakes that shouldn't be made again.
Sure.
Or see that it's a real issue. For example, the inclusion of minorities in Hollywood, that was a real thing, man.
Yeah.
If you probably saw Seinfeld.
Yeah. Sure.
There's a conversation. It's a famous conversation. It's always been there that they never had any black member in the, like, not even somebody, not even a server, and they were in New York.
Sure.
So
it's not representative.
I mean, and you can't cancel the show for that. Canceled in a way of saying fuck that show. You can't. But it is good to look back at stuff and say, hey, we can't make these mistakes again, or this was a real thing. You can't just pretend it didn't happen. But for sure, I agree with you. We can't go. We just gotta go forward.
Yeah.
It sounds cheesy. But
sometimes cheesy things are so important but also I mean, like. Well, I think that all of this is pretty dangerous territory. Not necessarily for you and me in this conversation. I'm talking about society because this place has a really interesting historical memory. Like the Second World War, 22 million Russians died in the Second World War. Like that's the number. 22 million, man. Like it's really like all the Appalachians. It's like all the Appalachians. Like in one snap, in 4 years. Sometimes I try to imagine the Twitter feed in those times. And the general consensus here is that the Soviet Union was the most horrendous thing that has ever happened here. But when I see the Soviet flag as a Venezuelan who hates communism more than anybody else, when I see a Soviet flag in the context of the Second World War, I feel like, come on, guys, well fought. That was hard, well fought, guys. You were protecting the motherland. Thank you. And that's the general consensus here. Everybody hates Stalin. Not everybody. There are people who love Stalin. Sadly enough, these people exist. And they can be young, and they can be our age. Like the guitarist of my band, I remember once we were in Budapest. We recorded a record in Budapest. And then we were in some thermal baths. In Budapest is really famous. It's like this public bath, with a sauna and Turkish bath and things like that. So you can buy beers and drink there and chill there and stuff. Really cool place. And we were just having beers, and imagine my guitarist of my punk band, who is my age, telling me like, yeah, Stalin, because Stalin was great. And I was like, you mean it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, wow, and he was like, yeah, he took those fucking Tartars and sent them to the fucking Siberia. And I was like, wow. I absolutely don't stand behind that.
I'm not surprised, at all.
Yes, but excluding the extreme side of that faction, which can be young again and modern and stuff, I don't mean that it's gone. The overwhelming feeling here is proud we tried, proud we're not trying again. I mean, this is the answer to communism, proud we tried, proud we're not trying again. And do never delete any historical symbol ever. Do never. And I love that. I have been in the when the 9th of May parade comes, because man, my wife is 35 years old. She's super modern girl, with all the open-mindedness that you can. She hears a song of the Soviet era, of the war times, and she cries immediately. She would cry immediately. because of what that meant for this society. And I think that the world could learn a lot by looking at how Russia approached to the history that the Soviet Union left behind, because the gulags are there and everybody knows they're there. And Solzhenitsyn, who wrote the Gulag Archipelago, just vomited volumes of hatred towards what happened here. But nobody wants to erase that. It's not a part of the conversation here, because
I think it's different realities. It's just that, but it's especially for us Venezuelans, like you just said a while ago. I think we're traumatized, so that's why Venezuelans here are like Cubans. We're gonna be like Cubans in Florida. We're gonna be so irrational when it comes to these topics.
Sure, but here is where again this conversation I introduced a while ago about the places who were empires and the places who were not empires. I mean, a country like this has a gravity. I mean, the name Russia has such a gravity that it goes beyond socialism or not. I remember once, like googling, like in Reddit, like searching in Reddit, like some questions about Russia, and I reached to this point, which was, how come Orthodox Christianity, never disappeared if the Soviet Union? Because in here it was forbidden to make churches. It was forbidden to make religious services and stuff. So the question I was watching on Reddit was like, how come Christianity never disappeared if the Soviet Union crushed it so hard? And the answer was, 70 years in the context of 1,000 is nothing. So you see what I mean? I mean, I am not surprised that this country, because of the gravity that the name Russia has, which spans 1,000 years, has an easier time on dealing with such a traumatic history than us. It's like, think about an old man who experiences something traumatic versus a 15-year-old, basically. It's a good way to put it,
I was talking about it not that long ago with a friend of mine, and it's that I feel like our generation, including myself, actually, I make jokes about it, but then I think about it and I know I'm not right. We don't really, I feel like young people, we're trying not to disrespect old people only because we're learning how to do some things better. Mm-hmm. And it's also like, there's wisdom too that you can only have by experience, which you can only get by getting older.
Absolutely.
That's like, I was looking at this Pretend It's a City documentary with Fran Lebowitz. Did you watch it?
No, I haven't.
Do you know about it?
No, I'm totally off the hook now because I'm fucking busy and working every single minute of the day. Yeah.
Pretend It's a City. It's a docu-series made by Martin Scorsese.
Like Pretending to City.
It's a city.
Pretending It's a City.
Pretend It's a City. Pretend It's a City. And it's with Fran Lebowitz, and she's talking about how she talks about it for a while, and it's just about how young people, because they're finding how to do stuff better, because we are. It is true. Sometimes you see TikToks and you go like, what the fuck? Why didn't everybody think about that? Why did nobody think about that before? And it's great. There are bright sides too. Yeah. But there's just wisdom that you can only achieve by getting old.
Yeah. And
there's nothing else in that. And you should also listen to old people because of that.
Yeah, and I think that it happens on a society-wide level. And that's perhaps one of the things I love about being here, is to see how this place has arrived to the future and to the present. Obviously, I mean, so many bunch of questions are thrown at me right now. It's like because of the circumstance of Navalny and the protests that you see on the streets
now.
All I can share about this right now, because I'm waiting for my Russian passport, all I can share about this now is this. It's a content of a WhatsApp chat between me and my Venezuelan friends. Somebody write me, like, hey man, what's going on there? And I answer like, well, my friends believe
not much.
Yeah. And I just said this, my friends believe that, it was a long conversation, and I said something like, my friends believe that the change is coming near. And the answer of my friend was like, so naive. Just like, I mean, it's interesting. You guys have some thoughts. I mean, I'm telling this to Russia. You guys have your 1,000 years of history. Well, let me tell you about our last 30 years of democratic struggle. It always seems that it's close, but It's always never is. Now I want to, because I mean I'm really strange case about this, and I want to really state my case here. And I'm really not saying this because I'm waiting my Russian passport, okay? Like I'm really mean it. Like no, and I really mean what I'm about to say. And this may gain me some haters or whatever. Like, look, it is not clear to me. Like, would we? I'm trying to tell you what's the status quo here in the fastest way I can, so you can take this as part of this conversation, as somebody who is here on the ground. Is it as bad as they painted? No, it isn't at all. Every time you read a news about Russia, please divide it by 4 or something like that. Like, for example, let me tell you that anti-gay law that you have heard so much about. If you stand in front of a school with a banner that says that being gay is good, you will get a 2,000 ruble fine, which is something like $20. That's the anti-gay law. That's it. That's all it is. It's like, man, please do not stand in front of a place where there are minors and say that being gay is okay. Look, do I agree with that? No. But that do not mean that gay people are being sent to prison or something, like you would feel if you read the New York Times or something like that. Do I like that law? No. But come on, let's have a debate that it's kind of more realistic than that. The law is about just not standing in front of a school where minors are there and making propaganda about different sexualities. I repeat, I do not support that law. But that is not the same that what the New York Times is trying to tell you when they say that Russia is homophobic. You know,
this is a question. It's not. It's
not,
go ahead. I'm not trying to say that it's not correct or whatever. But is it propaganda, or is it just to tell kids like if they're gay, that's okay?
That's where Russian democracy falls. In exactly what you just said. Those nuances are not clear here. So they will be used against you if they really want to fuck you over. And that's where Russian democracy falls.
Because if somebody's straight, like somebody who's straight,
like make love and not war,
and did
whatever.
The same,
like,
and they go like being straight is okay.
Yeah, because this country has
no fine for that.
Yeah, because this country has clearly stated that it has orthodox values. And so, I mean, it's kind of like,
okay.
But I mean, hey, once again, I mean, I'm just trying to give you an update of how reality truly is here. Another case.
No, and I had no idea. So
I mean, because when I read also this anti-gay law, I was like, wow.
Try not to do it that much.
I was like, wow, like gays are sent to concentration camps in Russia. No, they don't. I'm telling you, there are gay bars here with gay nights. Actually, the most legendary restaurant in the center of Moscow that it's 25-year-old has every Saturday for the last 25 years a gay night in which you cannot enter if you're not gay. They don't let you in. They discriminate to heterosexuals.
Do they check your Twitter following to see whether
like kiss your boyfriend there? They know the scene.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
It's like show me your butt plug or something like that. I don't know, but I mean they have their way. I mean, if you come with your girlfriend or something, it's kind of like they have their way.
Yeah.
Like, of course you can enter, but you see my point. I mean, so okay, that's one thing. Let me tell you another thing. When the Pussy Riot thing happened, because I hate the Pussy Riot thing, I hate the Pussy Riot girls. It's absolute bullshit. It's like, I mean, they just became famous because Madonna liked them. You know, I know them in person. Their album was recorded in my studio. I know all the shit. Like, it's really one-to-one knowledge. It's not like some sort of like pseudo-parallel thing that somebody, my uncle, told me on WhatsApp in some thread. It's like I know them. And well, wait. What I want to say when I love the girls. They're really cool girls. I just like don't like things that are full of air. That's it. I just don't like things that are full of air. And I'm not saying that they are full of air. It's just like the whole thing was blew out of proportion, because what you must understand is that just like that guy hit me here about in the middle of Russia somewhere and told me, are you American? No. Like the America does the same to Russia. It's just like a rivalry. It goes for decades. So
I think people know.
There is an active interest. There is an active interest in isolating Russia and making it feel like how people perceive it in the West. So when the Pussy Riot thing happened, you know, the drummer of Pussy Riot was hiding in my recording studio for 2 weeks. I was not in Russia in that moment. This was before I arrived here, but my studio already existed. And man, like you would imagine thinking that Russia is this like super dictatorship, is that our place would be burned the day after. Man, nobody ever touched the door of our studio. They don't give a fuck. This is super unimportant. And what you don't hear on the news is that 6 months after the sentence, Putin pardoned them and they were released. Because Putin always said that he was against the sentence. It's just like, I don't like Putin, but I hate more how the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and all of those media outlets distort the reality that we live here. I like, you see, like you can hate both of those things at the same time. Yeah. It's way much more nuanced than that.
It sucks to try to explain to an American that Fox News is right about what's going on in Venezuela.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just so you feel me there. It is hard. How do I explain them that I hate, that I hated Trump or I didn't like the guy?
Yeah.
And nor that means I like Biden. I don't have a stand because I don't think I should. And that's also
that's
okay.
a good position. That's a good position.
I don't think I should, honestly. I just didn't feel back then I had and that's not just to say out of trouble. It's just that I just didn't feel like I knew enough.
Yeah.
So if I don't know enough, why would I don't even vote. So it doesn't really matter.
Sure. Sure. You can see it like sports or get a bit involved, but
for sure.
I think that it's important. Like, and I always say it when I say anything about Russia. Nowadays, I have a little bit of more of an insight because I've been here already 8 years and like my knowledge of the place is quite advanced. But anyways, I don't know anything about this country, to be honest with you. I've seen it intensely and I know a lot about it, but it's hard to get all these nuances and I don't want to have an opinion. But I do want to say like that thing is like, I think it's the main message of this podcast, actually, as a podcast in general, is like, hey guys, like we're really not bears and balalaika here. There's something very sophisticated happening. And if you dig deeper, you're going to find a lot of beauty. So we reached
nice. That's a nice, hey, kudos on that.
Yeah. And I hope, I want to show it to everybody. I want to show it to everybody because I'm so grateful, man. Like, I'm going to tell you 2 stories so you can understand the human quality of this place. One story was the following, and so I'm gonna go for it. So when you do your papers to make your migration here, you have to do a blood test to check about drugs if you have consumed drugs. And let's put it like this: I really like to listen to Bob Marley's music. So to leave it as nicely as I can. And so I was listening to some. I found out about this test. This will tell you a lot about the human qualities of this place. I found out about this test and I was like, all right, let's do this. I'm not going to listen to Bob Marley's music for 2 months because whatever. Why should I get in trouble? So let's just not do that and let's just go to make my test, So I make this time without listening to this music and everything was cool. And I went to do my test. And then when I arrived there was not even a person. There was a paper like, do you listen to Bob Marley's music?
For you to say yes or no.
And I was like, no. Fuck. Right. Okay, fine. So the second time I had to do the test because it expires every 3 months and my papers took longer. But second time I was like, all right, listen, whatever. Maybe they changed the rule. Let's not listen to any Bob Marley for a while. No problem. Go again. I arrived and now there was a lady and the lady was like, have you ever heard this guy called Bob Marley? And I was like, no, I haven't. Okay, you passed the test. Fuck. Okay, fine. The third time, the same. The fourth time, I was like, oh man, today's the test. I'm going to listen to some Bob Marley in the morning. No props. Like, I know the thing. I arrived to the test. I sit down on the test. Imagine, this is official document, everything like to the maximum level that you can imagine. And imagine in the USA, you can imagine it. And so I arrived to the test and the lady started telling me something in Russian that I don't understand. And I'm like, sorry, excuse me. And then she was like, oh yeah, and then here is a container. You're going to have to pee in this container and you're going to go and pee in that container. And I said, I was in Amsterdam yesterday. That's all I said. And the lady was like, you passed the test.
Oh, she didn't. Oh, that's awesome though. I thought it was
No. The lady was like, you passed the test. Because she's looking to my eyes. She was not a robot.
Right.
She was a human being. She understood the thing. That's corruption, you see? That's corruption if you see it on a binary level. I don't know what to make of that, but I'm telling you, some things about this place, you know. The second thing I want to tell is like, I was on tour with Zenfira, with this artist I told you of air that I was working with, and we were like in the middle of anywhere, like somewhere in Krasnodar. It's a really cool city, and the keyboard player is playing. I'm on the side of the stage, and the keyboard player is playing, and he points to the front of the stage, and I'm like, what the hell? And I see there's a problem, you know. Then Zenfira, the biggest rock artist of Russia, famous household name, is like saying Beyonce. It's like saying Beyonce, literally. She points me to the front of the stage, and I'm like, what the hell is going on there? Like something is, I mean, I thought that there was a fire or a problem or something. And so I start kind of trying to go to run to see what's going on. And she comes back to me with this banner that said in Spanish, Leo, nos enamoramos de tu bailas, with a Venezuelan flag on it, right? So the audience find out that I was a part of the crew, and they were like, oh, the Venezuelan guy, whatever, and they made this placard. And so Zenfira comes to me and gives me the placard, and I'm so excited. I'm an immigrant here. I don't know the language. I'm so touched by the fact that somebody in Krasnodar thought about that, you know, and I was so grateful. Zenfira starts running to the stage, and I'm just the tech, you know. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm just the drum tech, you know. I'm not like the biggest part of the whole chain. I pulled Zenfira back to me because I was in a crazy mood, and I told her, Zenfira, I love your country. And then she starts going back to the stage again, and I pull her back again because I was too crazy in that moment. And I said, sorry, not your country, our country. Because I mean, I'm already married to a Russian.
Right.
And she told me...
you feel a citizen already.
And so she told me, I will tell you in Russian, and then I'll tell you what it means. She told me, Час посмотрим. She said, let's wait and see. I mean, she was like, I don't care. I mean, I love you. You're a cool guy, but hold it there, you know. Don't call it ours until you deserve it, you know. That's exactly what she said to me it meant. And I loved that answer. Because that's like Beyonce telling you something like, you know, you're like, I'm sorry, God bless America.
Which I hoped it ever happens.
Exactly.
Honestly.
And Beyonce telling you something like, let's wait and see, you know. Like maybe Westerners perhaps will answer like, fuck yeah, dude, you're in.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
this is super honest. It's like super honest. Like, let's wait and see.
Here it's just like woke white people are so welcoming when it comes to, especially in New York. Oh, this is your country. I'm like, no,
it's not.
I don't know the national anthem. I don't know a lot. I don't know any history about it. I just don't, you know, not any, but I don't really know as much.
Yeah.
Nor I, you know, feel like it yet.
Yeah, but I think
eventually, I hope so. But
exactly, but I think that's humility, man, that you are showing.
You deserve it.
Yeah, what? Yeah, and nowadays, for example, I'm waiting for my passport. I really feel like, I mean, I can go back to Zenfira and tell her, like, there you go. So I just wanted to say,
you can pull off the accent, as you can see, because you have something mixed between Caraqueño and Russian accent, which is a funny one.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of like, you know, transparency and honesty. I remember before I ever put a foot in this place, I asked to somebody, how are Russians? And the answer was, very human. And that's the news I bring you from here. These people are very human. They are very human.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice insight.
So we have an interesting situation, which is that I absolutely cannot wait to go to the toilet to pee. So that is going to kill the end of the podcast because I cannot hold it anymore. And I think it's a great place to drop it. But before we do, tell us a bit about the plans for your future. What do you have in mind? Like, what is coming ahead for you?
So this is actually the first time I'm going to say this, but this year I'm planning to do a stand-up show mixed with sketches. I hope COVID lets me do it. So I'm gonna have I'm planning to do it in New York. I'm planning to have like a stand-up show, having some bits, like 10 minutes long, then a sketch show on the screen, pretty similar to what Key and Peele used to do, which is like my main reference all the time.
Awesome.
What I eventually want to achieve. I want to do that. I want to continue with the podcast and try to do sketches and eventually finish my pilot for a TV series that I'm hoping to eventually, you know, in the future, try to make it.
Awesome. Listen, like from my humble corner of the world, I am no authority on anything, but I tell you, man, like you have made me laugh. Like, I mean, and I know that these things are
probably not in this conversation because it was very, very boring, but it was really, it was fun to me. I learned a lot.
Same for me. No, not true. Like, I mean, you made me laugh today as well. You have made me laugh in the past and man, like carry on. I mean, I always think that whatever we do, if we can trigger one person to be happy or experience something which is what we want, it's kind of enough. I mean, if the curtains go off to me tomorrow, you know, and I stop living in this earth, you know, I know that somebody enjoyed my music, and that's really powerful to me. And I'm just passing you that from Moscow. Thank you for what you do. It's appreciated. And my friend Flavio Bastos, who was a guest of this show, once told me this really cool idea before I crossed the 30s threshold, was like, you start winning when you cross the 30s threshold. And I mean, I really don't believe in this thing like, let me tell you something, youngling. What? No, I'm not doing that at all. But I'm sure that you have a bright future and that it's going to be better every day for you because you are on the right track. Thank you very much for what you do, man. Good job.
Regardless of your age, I enjoy that you said that. So if a 19-year-old tells me that, I will believe it only because I want to. But I appreciate it, man. And I'm really happy that you invited me here.
I'm so happy I caught you.
And I hope you keep doing this. Honestly, I think it's really, really different. It's a different thing.
Thanks a lot. I will. It's slow moving because I'm super busy and I have a child and stuff, but it's gonna keep gaining traction and I'm gonna keep doing it. So it's gonna be great. I mean, I enjoy profoundly. So thank you very much, everybody. Go and check out all the description below. There is all the info there for Angelo Colina. Awesome comedian. Like whether you're Hispanic or not, just check it out because it's gonna be really, really hilarious. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night. And man, thank you very much for doing this. I'm sad your plane got canceled, but I'm also happy that your plane got canceled because it gave us a chance to talk.
I'm good. Don't worry. I'm happy I came to your podcast.
Awesome, man. Bye.